Warning, left southwest 10-7.
Here's 365, turn right heading 240.
Spirit 72 with the mic, maintain flight level 310 and reaching, set course direct to Foxtrot mic and call Frankfurt, correction call light control, up to 402.
So I wanted to make this video because I see on YouTube plenty of guys making Zenith aircraft, RV aircraft, pretty much a lot of aluminium aircraft, and no one's really doing composites. So I thought it might be a good idea for me to just show you what's involved when you're making a composite aeroplane. So we're going to look at what's involved. We'll start at the beginning. So we're going to get to preparing for the build. So say you've ordered your airplane and you're waiting for it to come. What should you collect? What should you brush up on as far as skills or techniques? So I read somewhere that in Australia you need to log the temperature and humidity when you're using epoxy on your plane. Now for that I bought a weather station from J-Car. Alright, so this one here was $70 roughly. I think the model is out of stock now and they've replaced it with something newer, but it shows the relative humidity and the temperature both in and out. It's got an outdoor sensor which I just put on the other side of the workshop. Now if you know anything about composites, we're going to need sandpaper. So a good supplier I found was the sandpaperman.com.au. My apologies for anyone that's not in Australia, but this is going to be very Australian centric. So if you're unfamiliar with anything, just Google it. So I just got a mixed batch of sandpapers, everything from, what's this one, 48 to 300 and something I think is the fine ones. These are the Durablock. They're pretty expensive. They work really well. These are the type that you use the sticky sandpaper for and not the Velcro backed ones. They come in a box looking something like that. Yeah, pretty pricey, $200 something I think. I got that from the Sandpaper Man as well. So we'll get on to glues, and this stuff here is the first one you use. It's Velocipoxy, and this is what you'll start using for gluing and filling the foam cores to the wings spars. It's simple to mix with a 2-to-1 ratio, and you just need to add the micro balloon. So the amount of micro you add determines the viscosity of the glue. You add more micro when using it as a filler, and then you add less micro when you're using it as a glue. The manual tells you when to use it. You'll quickly get the hang of how much micro to add based on the task. The downside of the Velocipoxy is that it can take several hours to dry, and I've found, living in Queensland, it needs a lower humidity. So I find 60 to 70% it dries pretty quick. Now, not real quick, it's still several hours, so that's the downside, several hours. But I found when the humidity is really high, say up above 80, 90%, it can take 1 or 2 days to fully cure. I also found that when you add more micro, it goes more brittle and it's easier to sand, so it makes for excellent body filler kind of thing. Velocity give you these pumps, which is great, and they give you plenty of mixing cups and stirrers too, so give you a whole box of those things. They're just the tongue depressors, is what they call them in the manual, and just a whole bunch of mixing cups. So while we were waiting for the kit to arrive, we started collecting like a lot of just containers, so a lot of yogurt tubs and fruit cups stuff. So we've got plenty of containers to mix our epoxies and glues. So Velocity will supply you with all the glues you need, and the manual sort of says what glues you need. So they give you everything except for Bondo. Now I had to look up what Bondo was. Apparently it's a pretty popular car body filler in America. So I just went out to Supercheap and bought this stuff. Now this stuff's great. You put it on, you've got roughly 4 or 5 minutes before it goes hard, and then you can actually start sanding probably in about 10-15 minutes. So if you need a quick job real fast, then use this stuff, but otherwise use the Velocipoxy and the micro. Now one thing the manual says that you do need is packing tape. So this stuff here, okay, just got from Bunnings. It's the heavy duty type. That's pretty good. The epoxy won't stick to that. So you cover any surfaces that you don't want the epoxy glued to with that packing tape, and yeah, it'll just unsticks pretty good. So when it comes to micro balloons, Velocity do include heaps. I'm going to say heaps. I was going to say something else, but there's heaps of micro balloons. 2 boxes full of it. I can't remember if they're 5 pounds or 10 pounds, since I don't even know what a pound is. So, but you will need to find something to dispense the micro, since it's just basically in a plastic bag in a box. So I bought this sauce dispenser from one of the cheap shops for about $3, and this works great. So what you want to do is basically just fill up your container with your Velocipoxy or your epoxy, and then basically you just squirt the glue in, squirt the micro in, and then you just keep mixing it. So I just attach this thing to the drill, just plonk it in there, and spins, mixes up the glue while you just add the micro. So that works really well for larger jobs. If I need a smaller job, what I use is probably just something like this one. Just put 2 of them, 1 of those, then just mix it around with a tongue depressor while adding the micro. You just add as much micro as you think you need. So too much micro will make it very thick, a little bit like a paste. Very good for a filler, but no good as a glue. It doesn't stick to the foam real well. If you want to add less micro, it's really good as a glue, very runny, and will soak into the foam, and it'll be very hard to sand. So you want something in the middle. You'll figure it out. Velocity do supply you with heaps of epoxy. I think it's 20 litres. So here's the 20 litre drums. There's 2 of the white ones and 1 of the brown ones, the hardener. So it's got to be mixed at a ratio of 44 parts of the hardener to 100 parts of the just the clear stuff. So you mix it up, you add it to the glass to make the fiberglass, or you can add micro to it and it makes a bit of a glue. But this thing here, right, this is the mix of the Velocity cell. Now whatever the price is, okay, I think it's hundreds of dollars, just get it, because it's going to be the best thing during your build that you could imagine. Okay, there's nothing worse than having to try and just pre-mix everything, especially when it's 44 to 100. Trying to mix everything together, then add your micro. Okay, all you do is just pump the handle there, just glue comes out in the right proportions, and just give it a quick stir after that, and it's good to go. So I did spend about an hour checking the calibration of this thing, make sure it actually was 44 to 100. I checked it by both weight and volume, and it turned out to be pretty close. I think it was about 45 to 100. So I couldn't be bothered playing with it and recalibrating it, so I just left it at that. I have used it, and yeah, still it dries really well. So the drive time of this stuff, the Easy Epoxy, is several hours. Okay, so if you're going to do it, just do it, and then you're going to have to wait several hours before you can touch it. What you want to do is you want to work in small batches. So this is where this comes in, right? So all you do is you do 5 or 6 pumps of the handle, mix it up, apply it to your glass. Once that's out, come back, refill your container, and just keep going. That way you never use too much. You basically just use the right amount of epoxy to get the job done. Now, if you do make it in batches, if you mix it too much in one big batch, the epoxy can get hot. It tends to melt and melt your cup, and yeah, it'll go off far too quick. So just small batches, just use this pump. All right, just buy it. It's so worth it. So some of the tools you'll need. So these are the scrapers we use. So they're just a plastic scraper. We use these to apply the Velocipoxy glue onto the foam and onto the wing spars. We store them, all our sort of tools, in sealed containers. So there's another green one in there with acetone. So the acetone just stops any glue from sticking to them. You also want to keep maybe your scissors in acetone, so just to make sure that they don't stick together with the glue when you cut some fiberglass. And apologies for the sun. Anna found these squeegees at Big W for about $3 each. These are actually pretty invaluable. They made the job of putting the wing skin on really easy. So yeah, you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on equipment. So, Big W, $3, and you get the job done. So some other tools you'll need is you'll definitely need a spirit level. So this one's a pretty good one. It's actually got a little protractor inside of it, so it'll tell you what the angle is that you put it on. So it works in both the horizontal and the vertical. So you'll need one of these. You'll need a pretty good one. You want to make sure that these little bubbles are accurate, and the protractor is pretty accurate. I think with this one, the True Blue Empire brand, you can calibrate yourself. I found it's pretty good. Now the way you sort of check this is you just put it on the bench. Note that it's like 0.3 degrees. Turn it over, and we've got 0.3 degrees. So this one's pretty good. So one other little tool I got. This one's just a glue gun from the cheap shop. This thing is really handy. Hot glue is pretty good. It glues foam really well. Now I used it for installing the wires in the wing for the nav antenna. And also I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I'm using it to fill up any. Let me just show you. I'm using it to fill up any gaps. So where the foam joins the wing spar here. So it's good and bad. It's quick and easy to fill the gaps, but what you don't want to do is get the glue above the foam level, because when you run your sandpaper over it, it's going to just clog up your sandpaper, and you'll have to throw it out. So probably just use the micro and the Velocipoxy for that. One of the reasons I preferred the hot glue in the gaps is because when you the first time you run your Velocipoxy inside your gap that you're trying to fill, it tends to sink in, and it just creates a bit of a divot. You've got to wait several hours for it to dry, and then you've got to come back and you've got to do it again. So that's time consuming. So if you have got quite a big gap, probably I would just use a little bit of hot glue first. Make sure it's below the level of the foam core, and then you want to run some Velocipoxy filler inside the gap. Now the manual says to actually go get a Luwan Door. Now, God knows what that was, but I googled it, and it's basically just an internal door. It's just a hollow core door. So just go to Bunnings, find the biggest door you can find. Just make sure it's straight, there's no warpage to it, and yeah, just buy that one. Yeah, don't go spending heaps of money on it. It's not really worth it. So the next thing you'll need are clamps. You'll need plenty of clamps, both the F-type clamps, these locking style vice grip clamps, I think, and also these ones are spring clamps, come in pretty handy. And I've got some older clamps there, but you'll need plenty of them for all the jobs. Now, when it comes to Sawhorses, you'll need lots of them. So I've got 6 of them. So I've got 2 really good ones, which are these Burrow brand ones. They're imported from America. So Bunnings sell them. They're really good. They're nice and sturdy. I've got 2 good ones, and I've got 4 of the cheap ones. So these are just the Bunnings style ones. Okay, you just need to rest things on them. So they've got the wing resting on this one. Yeah, so at times I've used all 6, but you probably only need 4. So I also bought this little cheap eBay hot wire cutter. So it's got a few different types. I found this one pretty useful, and this one pretty useful. Not sure about that one. I'll probably use that one later on. So what I used them for was cutting excess foam. You can see up there, that's all the excess foam that they used to pack around the wing cores. So what I used these guys for was creating little bits of foam for making repairs. So there was a chip missed out of there, so I basically just cut a bit of foam to fill it in. And on the other side, there was same problems. You can see another section just here. So that was pretty helpful. So what I found great was Velocity give you some of the things that you'll need to manufacture your wings. So what they do, they give you this I-beam here, but it isn't an I-beam when they give it to you. What it is, it was 2 T-pieces. So at the beginning of the build, you're going to use the 2 T-pieces for aligning the trailing edge foam cores. You'll just lay the T-pieces over this foam core to make sure that these cores come up straight, in a straight line. So they work great for that. But once you're finished with them, you've then got to transform them into an I-beam, a single I-beam. So what I've done is I've had to join the edges together, and in the middle. So one thing you'll find yourself doing is you'll be making lots of little wooden bits and bobs. So you'll need to find a level line or a vertical line. So I just hung a string off here and just run a plumb bob down, and then I would stand that so it lines up with these lines here in your foam wing cores. So you can get a perfectly plumb leading edge, trailing edge on your wing core. So another thing I had to make up was this little pallet thing that the fuselage sits on. I went down to Bunnings, bought some caster wheels and bolted them on. So now I can move my plane around the workshop so it doesn't get in the way especially while I'm working on the wings. I actually found this pallet thing just outside the gates of a factory down near at our local industrial area. Threw it on top of the car on the roof racks and brought it home, and it turns out pretty good. A few notes on safety. The Easy Epoxy hardener, so stuff in here, and that stuff. That is extremely stinky stuff, and it will stain anything that it touches. The main issue you've got is probably the smell. You're going to stink yourself out. So what you want is, I think these are just half-face respirators that you get from Bunnings. Well, this one you get from Bunnings, that works just as well as this one I got from work. Just stole it, so it's all good. So the way these things work is basically they filter out gases and particles. When you can start smelling the product, that's when they're stuffed apparently. So yeah, I told the wife about it and put a mask on her, and it wasn't until we actually finished putting the skin on that she took the mask off and then was horrified by the smell. So they work pretty good. Yeah, the Bunnings sell the 3-in-1s. They're pretty cheap actually. So I think less than $50, something like that. You also want to protect your hands. So Velocity make a big deal about trying not to get any epoxy on your hands just in case you become allergic to it, and then you can't finish your plane basically. So I wear some of this barrier cream. It's just a moisturizer cream that fills up all the pores in your skin. So once your skin pores are full up, if you get some on your hands, if you get some epoxy on your hands, you can't, it no longer absorbs into your hand. These masks are also good for wearing to protect your lungs from the micro and the fiberglass dust. Now, word about the fiberglass dust is try not to actually, so here I've got some glassing done, and just here I've had to sand some fiberglass. Now, don't sand the glass if you can help it, okay? The white stuff there, it's pretty hazardous, and if you have to, make sure you get a vacuum cleaner nearby so you can just suck it up straight away, and you don't want to leave the glass dust on the ground. So what you want to try is vacuuming as you sand. So yeah, pretty horrible stuff. Sanding the actual resin, not so bad, and the micro, not so bad. But yeah, you don't want to get any of this glass dust in your lungs. So in the next video, I'll probably cover the process of building the wings. So that'll be putting the foam cores onto the wing spar, right up until the stage of putting the wing skin on. Okay, I've already done most of it with one wing, so I'll run through it while I'm doing the other wing. I wasn't very confident doing the first one, so that was all a learning experience. So second time through should be pretty easy. Okay, so yeah, stand by for that one. My employer has me working over 60 hours a week, so things are going slow, but you know, I'm happy to build when I can. So see you later.